So, Becky, yeah, instead of the 2.3 million missing Americans from the labor force that compares to the pre-pandemic level, a CNBC analysis suggests the number could be as much as 1 million lower than that. That means the labor market is tight, not as tight, though, as the headline number makes it appear. And it means the inflation threat from wage growth still exists, but might not be as long lasting. Here's the data. The government's not seasonally adjusted numbers show 1.8 million Americans have returned to the workforce this year. But the seasonally adjusted number, that's the one that everybody follows, including most economists, is up by only 891,000. The difference is about 1 million. Our analysis shows this is the same gap that existed over much of the past 5 years through October. Here's the question: whether the pandemic is just too different and too weird for the old patterns to apply. Well, what's different? Schools have reopened in the past couple months. Unemployment benefits ended for millions of Americans. Vaccinations are on the increase. And Delta is declining now at this time of year rather than the virus increasing at this time last year. Mark Zandi from Moody's Analytics says these factors should be bringing people back to the labor force in coming months, and the seasonal adjustments could supercharge the process. Now, Mike England of Action Economics, he also reviewed our analysis, was more skeptical. He said it's accurate to say we definitely have new seasonal patterns because of COVID, but hard to say which way the adjustments should be made. Ian Shepperson, I also talked to him. He says COVID has massively complicated seasonal adjustment picture. He expects more workers to return, both in actuality and the data. If it's all accurate, Becky, we should see this data show up in November and in December employment reports.
All right, I was trying really hard to follow along, but I got lost a little bit there. We think that the seasonal data is showing that we will see more workers come back by November and December. Is that the kind of the end game on this?
Well, some of them are already back, Becky. That's the point. We think some are going to come back because of changing factors. But if you just call up that chart again, you'll see the not seasonally adjusted number, 1.8 million. The seasonally adjusted number, 891,000. Those will be added back. And by the way, I think the BLS is doing what it should be doing. It can't randomly create seasonal adjustment patterns. So it's just going with what it normally went in the past, and it's showing that gap of 1 million. They'll be added back in the coming months because that's the way the seasonals will work. What
do the JOLTS numbers say? Just how many jobs are open right now? How many people are kind of jumping in and out of jobs? Because that's been phenomenally huge, the turnover.
It's about, the jobs opening data is about 10 million, Becky. Take me a second to call it up, but that's the latest opening number. So those numbers have to close as well. Those gaps need to close as well.
And I guess I'm going here. We've got Brian Deese coming up in a little bit. And what would you ask him, Steve, about these numbers, about these signs that we're seeing? Because there are all these articles over the weekend, today, still continuing about how the economy looks pretty good on a lot of data points. It doesn't necessarily show everything. And the big question is, what economy emerges from here?
You know, I would ask him, really the puzzle is, if you look at that list of things that I put up, the vaccinations on the increase, schools open, the big economic puzzle is why workers are not returning and whether they will return. We know there are some structural changes. There's the retirements have been on the increase. That seems to be inexorable. But we've got a chart here that looks at what has happened with parents. And what it shows, Becky, is that if you don't have kids, you're back to the workforce the way you were. That number there, that blue line, is 100 or 101. If you have kids between 6 and 17, you're about 3% below where you were before January 20. If you have kids 0 to 5, you're not back. You're back. Those numbers are down 7%. So the question is, what's it going to take to bring these folks back? Our data suggests some of them may be back, just not counted.
That makes a lot of sense.